All right, we're live. We've been live for a minute. Let's do this. Day 432. We are looking at 6,000 Shepherd Mountain Cove, Austin, Texas 78730. Is a one-bedroom property. Now, the reason I'm looking at this property is because I got this email for a subject to deal. Now, a subject to deal, I'm trying to chat, is obviously when you are buying a property, you're taking over ownership on a property, but you are taking over the payments on the underlying loan. All right, we haven't done a subject to deal for a while, but you can see why this is advantageous, because when you look at the underlying loan at a 3.99% interest rate, that is much lower than what you are able to get on the market today, which I've heard from sixes to sevens. And for investment loans, you're probably looking at high sixes, low sevens easily. So that's a much more advantageous interest rate. Now, why would someone be willing to sell it to you on a subject to deal? Because the loan stays in their name, right? Sometimes that might be a little confusing. Some people are more educated than others, but still, when you are looking at this deal, let's look at this property. This property, when I look at Redfin, it says under contract for 275 grand. So they're actually selling this for 285. Interesting, right? So because they are selling the property with a subject to deal, because they are giving you a valuable asset on a lower interest rate loan, they're able to get more money. So now you can see why they bought it, right? Now, let's see. When did he buy this property? Sales. They try to rent it out for $250. They originally probably bought it for $280,000. So you can see that, let's say you have transaction fees, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you would be losing money because there's no way, I'm assuming, you're able to get back the same amount of money. So this is why when they were listing for $275, you're losing more than just the $5,000 between the $280,000 and the $275,000. Okay. Now, the reason why you want to go about this is you as the buyer get a lower interest rate. The seller gets to most likely gets to walk away with some money or less money out of pocket. So let's see. So you can see that right here in your entry fee. Oh, great. Here it is. The seller has fallen behind on the mortgage payments. That's why these are arrears here. So you have to help the seller catch up on $8,415 in loan to make it current again. Give probably some compensation to the agent for listing the deal in the first place, and then you got to negotiate and give a $10,000 finder's fee to the wholesaler who put the deal together. And that is your entry fee. That is the money that you need to get and buy the deal without account for any sort of renovations yet. All right, so this is going to be good. So let's go ahead and go through. Let's look at the condition of this home. This property looks pretty good, pretty modern. You don't need to do much work in here, I'm assuming. So I might put a little bit of money aside for painting, but because this is HOA, I'm assuming I'm not responsible for any roof repairs because I'm assuming the HOA is covering for the roof expense. I don't assume that I have any landscaping expenses because I don't think I have a backyard here. That's probably already with the HOA. Now for painting, I'm gonna assume maybe there's some touch-up paint that I need to do to get the property rent ready. Maybe there's some dents in the walls or whatever, but 706 square feet equals 706. I'm gonna divide that by 4. I'm assuming I need to repaint at least 177 square feet or something like that for the home. That's about 530. It's not much. Replace one of the toilets with a high pressure flush toilet, and now I only have a rehab about $2,000. That's not much, right? Not much at all. So for this property, if I'm buying this property at 285, okay, my rehab is 1775. My rent right here, if I go to affordablehousing.com, I'm going to go to the owner section. I'm going to go to the market rent estimator, plug in the address, plug in bedroom count. You can see that my average rent for 11 units within 0.13 mile radius, the average rent is $1,243. Great. Now, is that going to work? Let's see. What is my PITI? My principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So now I have let's go ahead and go through all these numbers. Right here, I already know I'm gonna lose money on this deal. So as a rental, this probably isn't gonna work. Is it a deal if you buy it for a prime residence? Maybe, but that's not the case nor the scenario that we're analyzing today. So when we look at 2030, 2273, let's go ahead and find out what the rent ceiling is. I just want to double check, right? So if you Google HUD FMR and you click on the first link, you can go scroll down to the Access Smart Area FMRs, look up FY 2025 FMRs, go to Texas, and what county is this property in? I'm gonna do a control find right here. Travis County, 78730. Travis County, 78730. And you can see that a rent ceiling for a one bedroom right here is 1670. Now, 1670 is still lower than the PITI of 2030. So right then and there, you could probably run the deal. But we're going to go ahead and we'll do all the math out. But the problem is you always have to be aware that this 1670 number includes utilities, and that's a rent ceiling, right? So normally you're probably, if you don't cover utilities, you probably got to back up another $100, $200 off of that. However, don't forget about the rent reasonableness test. And the rent reasonableness test, if you look at it right here, this is the Housing Choice Voucher Program Guidebook. Housing Choice Voucher is what was previously known as the Section 8 vouchers. When they rebranded it from Section 8 because of all the negative connotations associated with Section 8, then you renamed it Housing Choice Vouchers. But in Section 2.2 of the guidebook, it says that in conducting rent reasonableness, the PHA, or the Public Housing Authority, must determine whether the rent to the owner is a reasonable rent in comparison to rent for other comparable unassisted units. So in determining comparability, the PHA, the Public Housing Authority, must determine, obviously, size, unit type matters, right? But obviously, one bedrooms, this is a condo, this is an apartment. You're not comparing a one bedroom single family home with another one bedroom single family home. People don't typically build one bedroom single family homes. So I have pretty high confidence that this 1243 is the reasonable rent. So if you were to say this was 1670 rent, I think you would be grossly overestimating your rent because of the rent reasonableness test. Always double check, right? Some folks make the mistake of saying, hey, I see the FMR, that's the published rent, that's what I should be getting. It's not it. It got to be reasonable. Okay. All right. So now we can plug in some more details here. Let's plug in our entry fee. So 38.25 right here equals 3825. And then our arrears in the calculator is 8415, 8415, like 2.5% for closing costs. For my taxes and insurance, right? I'm going to back into the total amount. So I can enter my mortgage information right here. So this property has a $262,760 loan. 262,760. 262,760. That's a 3.99% interest rate with a maturity of 4/152. So that'd be 21/22. That's when it started. Just backing out 30 years from that. Now you have 25%. For my entry fee, I got $38.25 from over to $85.15, and I got $10,000 assignment fee. That's essentially a finder's fee. So this property, let's back into our cash flow. If you know that the PITI, including HOA, so don't double count it, is 2273, you can do equals 2273. And you're going to subtract the interest and the principal portion of the subject to loan in B20, B21. So you get 1,020. That's essentially your property taxes and your insurance. I'll probably add another $20 for insurance just so I can account for the differences there. But now that gives me my total expenses, and I'm going to set aside 10% of my rent every single month for maintenance, right? I know at some point I'm going to have to replace the toilet. Maybe if I'm responsible for water heater in unit, that's something I have to be responsible for. I have to keep that in place because I'm responsible for that. All right. Same thing with my air conditioner, HVAC unit, especially if I have a condo. Maybe I have my own HVAC unit. You got to be conscious about the future repairs that are coming your way. And then for property management expenses, I'm setting aside 10% every single month, and I got 5% for vacancy. So if you rent this property out as a one bedroom and you're able to get $1243 for that, you would be negative cash flow, negative 1,360, negative 1,360, negative 52% return. To me, that's not a deal, right? Obviously, this is not investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments on this call. I just want to show you all how in this scenario, can you rule out a deal really fast? And today, how did we rule out that deal? We ruled out that deal because as soon as we saw that the PITI was 2030 and we saw that the market round was 1243, that rent being that much lower than the PITI, it's negative. And that's why you can stop analyzing a deal. The whole point of this exercise for you to quickly understand how do you raw a deal? Because if you're able to raw a deal a lot faster, you don't spend all your time getting burnt out, right? Because what's the point of burning out? You get burnt out if you do a lot of work for no results in return. That's what's going on. Make sure you look at all your expenses. Make sure you understand the rent reasonableness test that we talked about from the Housing Choice Voucher Guidebook. And then know what your criteria is, right? 10% is not the magic number. Some people just care about appreciation, which is really risky, but that's a path, that's a strategy for building wealth. You have to understand what your risk appetite is and what your execution risk is. What are the chances of you finding a contractor that's going to show up on time, every single time, do what he or she said they were going to do? Because that's execution risk. What's the chances of the Section 8 inspector showing up on time? What if you fail the first time? Now your holding cost goes a lot higher because you have extra month or two of waiting around to do stuff. All right. So make sure you guys stay on top of this. I hope this was helpful. You guys want to copy the spreadsheet? You can go to affordablehousing.io. You go to the Get Deal Analysis tool. That's the fastest way for you to copy the spreadsheet. I hope you all have an amazing Thursday. Thanks for doing this live with me. I hope you guys are able to copy my homework. Right? Use the same spreadsheet. I didn't make the spreadsheet from scratch. Got it from a few other folks. Modified it, tweaked it a little bit. But that's how I can analyze my deals the most fastest way possible. All right. Hope this is helpful, everybody. I'll see you all tomorrow for day 433. Have a good one, everybody.